everybody. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. Tonight, we got a great show for you. A friend of mine from Portland. I don't even know what you call Ben. I mean, like a gadfly or a troublemaker, my brother. If we were like mirror images of one another, I do have a few more wrinkles than he does, but he'll catch up, especially if he keeps doing what he's doing. But we're both people who care deeply about Oregon. And I know some of you are critical of me because I left, but I'm older and I don't see it changing for a while. And I got other things to do in my life, so that's like dig out of snow. First, let's get right to, I want to thank our sponsors. And so we're going to go right through them here. Chris Dental Family Dentistry, where your civil liberties are just as important as your dental care. And there's a number. If you have a problem today, they can probably get you in today or tomorrow. So that's Dr. Michael Bratlin. We just put out an ad on KPNW radio here in town. And it's about, one is supporting Israel. And he's not afraid to do that. And so I wrote this ad, which is fun for me because I love to write stuff like that. And I wrote him another ad. And we're doing what should have been done a long time about the COVID crisis. Is we're talking about healthcare and how you need to get healthy. The biggest problem you're going to have, the biggest comorbidity is obesity. And we can all do something about that. I know some people are genetically destined to be a little heavier, but I'm not talking about it a little heavier. I'm talking about obese. And that's the problem. And you'll bring your diabetic rates down and all those other comorbidities. So we did an ad because, here I know that the Biden administration is so concerned about our health, but we talk nothing about how to get healthy. So we're doing it. Dr. Bratlin and I are going to do that. So anyway, we want to thank him for being part of our show. Also, oh, that's the open. I don't have to do that again. I love this one. New Leaf Hyperbarics and Wellness Center, light therapy, hyperbarics therapy. Matt McCarl's the greatest guy, and he also is a big guy who cares about what is going on in the world and what you are doing. And he wants to make sure people are informed as to what is happening. And our other sponsor, Fairway Independent Mortgage right here in Helena, Montana. Greg Hinkle's a great guy. He's from Oregon and Washington. So there's laws in Oregon and Washington. Go figure. There's a law that you can't even leave the state unless you understand the policies of that state. Now, I didn't know it, so I got out illegally. But, hey, there's a lot of people coming into areas illegally. So what the hell? I'm just one more. But there are some laws that you need to know when you're leaving Oregon and Washington, some things that you need to know transferring into another state. I didn't know them. He knows them. That's why he's one of our sponsors. So he's a smart guy. He's a good guy. And he believes in your liberties as well. And the other man who believes in your liberties. Hey, Ben. So honestly, Rick, I know we're friends, and I'm like your, uncle who looks like you. But what is your title? You ran for office. I mean, you're just kind of. Gadfly is the old word that they used to use for people that kind of, go around and follow things, because you follow politics in Oregon super close.
Well, yeah, I'm in the middle of politics in Oregon, but I've been called a lot of things, and I would love to be called any of the three things that you brought up. But what I tell the left-wing media is that I'm a civil rights leader.
Oh, well, I'm going to use that. I think
I'm a White Al Sharpton.
I am. I'm a freedom of speech guy, and I think one thing I have learned. I didn't know this as much about myself, but I think that I've learned through all of the last 3-4 years, especially, is just how important our freedom of speech is. And, it says in the Bible, we're all created for a time like this. And I really understand that now, because my whole career has been about giving people a voice. Mm-hmm. And now I do it. And I just wrote something today about the horrible massacre in Maine. And the 18 people murdered by some guy with mental health issues. And the gun didn't kill him. He did. And already the administration is coming out and, oh, here we go. So here we go with another round of answers that will never solve the problem because we're not holding the people accountable. And we have a mental health crisis in this world. And what we do, especially in this country, and then what just drives me mad is they help cause that mental health crisis by the way they've treated people and locked them down for the last 3 years. Yeah, we're our own worst enemy until all of you people like you and me and everybody else in our audience starts speaking up. It's never going to change unless we do.
It's also, you're exactly right. It's also about how they're indoctrinating our children in schools through the public education system. And that's where a lot of this is really starting to take shape in terms of our national mental health crisis.
Well, and aren't you seeing this, Ben, too? I think with the Palestinian-Israeli thing, we're really starting. It's almost like we're super aware now of what's going on, and over the last 20 years, this infiltration of hate against anti-Semitic education, ideas, and now they're coming out as New York and all these college campuses are, out there supporting Hamas and the murder and rape and beheading of children, and it's like
babies.
Yeah. And this is what's going on in our country. So I feel like the good news in all this is you have to have your head so far in a hole to not start seeing what's going on. So when I notified you, you had some concerns of things that are going on around Oregon, and I'm not there as much. So talk to me about what you're seeing in the education process.
Well, look, we had a big event at actually my stepson's middle school here in Tigard-Tualatin School District. Just a few weeks ago, where a girl was brutally and viciously assaulted by a boy dressed in girls' clothing who bullies girls, but also is granted access to girls' safe spaces and bathrooms and locker rooms by district policy. All you need at the Tigard-Tualatin School District is a declaration that you're an opposite gender, and then they give you access to all the gender facilities.
I saw that video, and she was beaten up too. She was really beaten up.
Yeah, it was really bad.
So that was your school?
It was my son's school, and I'm a parent there, so I'm already pretty active. My son had a First Amendment right violation last year, where I went to the school and explained that I'm going to take you to federal court along with the district and the teacher. If this ever happens again, it'll be the worst thing that ever happened in your life, because that's kind of what I do through Free Oregon is we bring lawsuits, and I'm named on multiple lawsuits, including election integrity lawsuits here in Oregon that are in the Ninth Circuit Court right now that are doing very, very well. In fact, we're actually forcing the Secretary of State to do some pretty crazy things, which we can talk about later. But back to Hazelbrook, the schools are teaching children as young as kindergarten as a matter of state policy through the Oregon Department of Education, pushing down through every individual school district as young as kindergarten, that they can choose their own gender, that they can be, in fact, gender fluid. And when you start that young, this is indoctrination because it's not true. You are a male or a female, and that is what you are. And there's no deciding otherwise. And so I have no problem with people who decide that they would like to live as the opposite sex someday. That is not my business and not my place to judge. And I don't judge. I truly don't. But it's dangerous when you begin to give people who are having mental health issues, like support to act out through their sickness. And this, not just support, but at Hazelbrook, they actually give you rewards. If you become transgender, you get to go on field trips that other kids can't go on. During class time, you get to go to special clubs where it's like they have the couches and the pizza and everything else. You can hang out. It's crazy. You get
they're making it attractive so that
they're rewarding you. Yeah, they reward the kids who declare they're the opposite sex. Now, this is nonsensical. Okay, if everybody just stops and thinks about this is nonsensical, because at the same time, we're limiting and removing all graduation standards in the state of Oregon. You do not have to show and prove mastery of reading, math, and writing to graduate in Oregon.
Why?
Because they're not teaching anything except for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So DEI is the new, the back to the basics. those are the basics of education in
Those
Oregon?
are the basics of education. It's pure indoctrination. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's a Trojan horse for restorative justice and for gender theory. And gender theory is just totally bogus. Like it truly is bogus. I do recognize that there are people that have gender dysmorphia and they could live better lives if they live as the opposite sex. I totally support people in making that decision when they're adults. But I do not support government schools indoctrinating children as early as kindergarten, beginning in kindergarten. I'm using the wrong words. It's not as early as. It starts in kindergarten by ODE mandate to begin teaching gender theory and restorative justice.
Well, what do you say to people that would say, well, but that's healthy because these kids need to know early so they're not struggling with that when they're in their primary grades, thinking they're different than other people? What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're absolutely wrong. Kids need to be kids. They're not. I have kids. I have a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, and my wife had a 25-year-old. Okay, so I'm a father and a stepfather to multiple kids and multiple generations. My 9-year-old is not thinking about sex. I'm sorry, he's not, and not necessarily thinking about gender. But it's so it is indoctrinative. Let the kids be kids, and even if you are transgender, let's say, and you've experienced that struggle your entire life since birth, you still need to learn how to read, write, and do arithmetic.
So maybe what's happening, like the difficulty, I think, for a lot of us is that, we're not even doing, school is supposed to be about reading, writing, arithmetic, education, getting kids ready for that.
That's what we pay the public schools to do. To educate.
If you want to have another place that deals with those other issues, then do that. But if we can't even get the basics down, it's like having I'm trying to figure out a good analogy, but it's almost like if you had a mechanic shop and you were good at working on old cars and these kind of things. So you start doing, and now we start bringing in these, and nobody's been educated on how to do this. You can't even do what that's a bad example, but
no, it's actually a good example because they're not doing education anymore.
Right.
They're indoctrinating by design, by engineered policy infrastructure. They are now indoctrinating children. I sent you this message today. Here's another great example of it.
I see it.
It's an email. So today is actually our parent-teacher conference day in our district. So the kids are off school today and tomorrow. And my wife and I couldn't find our older son's email from the school to establish an appointment with his teachers. And we couldn't find it. And then last night, my wife, while we're laying in bed, she goes, oh my gosh, here it is. It's not called parent-teacher conferences anymore. It's Family Partnership Day. And I was like, I got so mad. I got to tell you, normally I'm used to seeing all of the DEI stuff and all this stuff, and it doesn't make me angry. I'm used to it. I know what it's about. I combat it every day. I don't have an emotional response. But last night I got so mad and I couldn't figure out why I was so angry. And I had to pause and go, why are you so angry? And I thought and I tried to calm down, and I realized that the government school is not a partner to my family. They do not co-parent with me and my wife. They're there, and we and all of our neighbors in our community pay that school district to educate our children, okay? Not to be our partners, not to infiltrate our family. They have no say in what our family believes in. They have no say in what our family does. They have no say in our family culture, but that's what they want. And I realized that's why I had such a visceral response to family partnership days at Hazelbrook Middle School.
But don't you think we've allowed, culture has allowed the schools to become the parents of our kids? It's almost like we've just thrown, I mean, in general, you educate them. It's kind of like, you take care of them here and socialize them and all that stuff. And we've got to go to work and all that stuff. And we've kind of opened the door over the last 40 years. To this whole idea. And now it's like, because so many families are disrupted and don't take the time to do the things that, that we used to do as families. It's opened the door for the schools to come in. And so you've got teachers who are trained, basically supposed to be trained to educate, and they're socializing them now. And I don't want a teacher, socializing my kids. I mean, mine are adults, but at the time, that wasn't part of their job. You teach them the things that I'm not educated. I don't understand parental theory or educational theory and childhood development. That's what you understand.
Yep.
And you do that part, but I'll take care of the their values and that kind of thing at home.
Exactly. And here's the thing though, I don't think we necessarily like open the door, other than the fact that the school systems have taken advantage of parents. They've been dishonest to parents. They've been dishonest for years and years and years. They haven't told the truth, and they won't tell the truth.
What opened the door? What do you think? Was it COVID?
It was COVID. COVID was the kick down of the door, right? The door was already open. They kicked it down and ran in and hit so hard and fast that nobody even knew what was happening. I get some people did know what was happening, but not enough. Now, a lot more of us understand what's happening. There's a big movement with the parents and the teachers. Like, I'm in communication with a group of teachers at Hazelbrook that have signed, it's a majority of teachers that have signed a letter of disconfidence or unconfidence in the school district superintendent. They want her fired. This child had beat 2 other girls within the last 6 months in the same way and never was disciplined. But see, Tiger Tualatin School District, as a process of restorative justice policy, has a no expulsion, no suspension policy. So no matter what, so you can beat the crap out of girls, dude, and nothing will happen to you if you are transgender, because they have a quota-based referral system that says if you have 2% Black kids, for example, you can only 2% of the referrals written can be to Black kids. If you have 2% gay kids, only 2% of referrals can go to LGBTQ kids, right? So once those referrals are done, and they can't write referrals anymore, but there's also a non-expulsion, non-suspension policy, even for violence.
So what's to keep a kid from not, I mean,
Nothing.
I was expelled.
Me too. I got expelled from Portland Public Schools in 1990.
And I learned. I mean, and I got in trouble for my parents because of that. And it was like the worst experience of my life. And here's what I understand about our culture. And I know I'll get in trouble for this, but I just don't care anymore.
I'm with you though. I'm a bad influence.
I just don't care anymore. I mean, I have so many friends who've been addicted to drugs, criminals, doing that, bad stuff. And they will tell you, they went to jail over and over and over again, but finally that's what changed them. And we've become a culture where punishment is a bad word to culture. And
but you know what it leads to?
Restoration.
No, what you're talking about leads to restoration. And I can speak to that as a former drug addict. I can tell you all kinds of crazy stories about how I got clean and sober.
Oh God, I got to add you to my list.
You can add me to your list. You absolutely can. So, but I'll tell you this, what the restorative justice and lack of consequences and lack of discipline leads to is chaos. Right. And chaos is what we have in our public schools. Chaos is what we have in Hazelbrook. Chaos between the teachers, chaos with the kids, and chaos in our streets. And the chaos in our streets is drug dealers and gangs killing each other over turf to sell drugs that are now decriminalized to people who are dying in the streets doing drugs. So it's completely devastated our largest urban zones like Portland and the surrounding metro area. And it's doing the same thing and having the same effect in our public schools. Anything that's government operated is basically degrading and becoming destroyed.
So I was reading something where there's like 3 or 4 counties in Oregon who have come against Measure 110, the measure that basically legalized drugs for people, and they want to stop. Their counties want to stop start enforcing the law, the non-law, and busting these people. That's how upset people are. They're going against the system, voting and saying, we're not going to do that. We can't do this anymore.
Well, and I'll tell you this, there's nothing that they can do. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to happen. They won't be able to enforce that law because it's state law. Even the sheriffs can't enforce that law because that law doesn't exist. It's decriminalized. It's the same reason why, even if all the parents in the TTSD get very upset and we decide that we're gonna vote for new school board members because we're so pissed at the school board for not controlling our schools and keeping our kids safe, right? That even the school board members that we replace cannot fire the superintendent of the district. And the only employee that answers to the school board is the superintendent. So the superintendent can do whatever they want to, because only in the state of Oregon, only the Oregon Department of Education can fire a superintendent and change something at a school district.
It didn't used to be like that.
No, they've taken away democratic control. They're taking away local control of counties. They're all power to the state. It's the definition of communism.
Restorative justice. Talk to me about that.
Restorative justice just simply says they go through a process of interviews with a perpetrator, and they also treat the perpetrator as if that perpetrator is the true victim. It's an upside down world. The kid who dresses like a girl, who gets to go into girls' locker rooms playing girls' sports and beat the crap out of girls without consequence, is the victim here. That's the bottom line. In fact, the school district and the superintendent went public to KGW and to all these different local news channels and said it was the parents, it was national parents, not local parents, but national parents who were spreading hate about the LGBTQ community and not telling the truth. And they would not reveal the gender of the child who was the assailant. But the assailant is a boy. And I've said it over and over and over. I represent the family from a public relations standpoint in this case. And so I'm close with the family. I know what the family's going through. I know what they're looking for.
This is the family of the girl that was beaten up.
It was a girl beaten up by
that's the family you're representing.
Yes, the girl beaten up. Yes.
I want to just be clear. Yeah.
But the attacker in this case is also a victim of the school district. The attacker is a kid who struggles with mental health and mental illness, and he's been given rewards for acting like the opposite sex and saw a clear opportunity to bully girls, which he hates girls. He's only beat up girls. And he was granted access to safe space. In fact, you could do overnights with the district, like summer camps and things like that, where he can be allowed to room and board with other girls his age. So it's terrifying.
So how do you keep this from becoming, and I'm really asking truthfully, because it's like, we can't even talk about this stuff without getting called you're anti-LGBTQ or you're anti-gay or you're anti-whatever, and it's like, at some point we have to just be pro-kid and talk about what this is doing to all of our children, including those children. And I don't know how you ever do that in the culture we live in, because we're so, it's as soon as you say it, I mean, I already know this is going to get like people just, you're anti this. And it's like, why can't I be like you? I'm anybody who's an adult. You make your own decisions. But up until that point, kids have to have the ability to, you can't be having kids making their choices for themselves all day. There has to be a standard or a line that's drawn and says, now, once you hit 18, then you could go do whatever you want. But at this point, we've given, I mean, have you ever thought about, like, if you knew, okay, so one of the things, and I hope, guys, this is what I hate about our country right now. I'm afraid this is going to get so censored if I say anything. I don't care what people think of me. I'm afraid they're going to just censor me. But I said this to my wife the other day, because we're seeing this in Montana now with the furries, where they're putting cat litter boxes in restrooms in schools. Mm-hmm. And I said to my wife, you know what? If I was a kid and I knew that I could have control over my teacher that easily, like, I get to know, you have to put a litter box in there because I want to be a cat. Yeah. I would have totally played with their minds. You know what I mean? And it's like, we've given this over. we've given this over to it's just stupid. It's chaos. It's chaos. And we've given it over, and now we've got teachers and administrators bowing to this. When it's like, if I was a kid, I remember doing that to counselors. I'd tell them a story and work them around my little finger and do that. And I think that's what we've done. We've given the kids the power rather than the district being able to say, And, I mean, I remember my mom was a kindergarten teacher back in the day, and she could actually spank kids.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying that that was a different era, but we didn't have the problems we're having now. And that's again, so anybody watching this, I'm not saying we should be spanking
Rick
kids.
Dancer's advocating for spanking
Yeah,
kids.
I'm just saying we've gone too far the other direction in terms of not, what's unfair about it is we're really not giving them any guidance.
Yeah.
It's a free for all. And to me, that is the most awful thing about it is I think as a kid, I needed guidance as a kid. I needed somebody to tell me, even when I was a druggie, I knew there were lines that were drawn by the cops or people like that. I could get arrested and I knew that. Mm-hmm. Now I think they have the power and I bet you honestly, they don't want it. They want adults to say
they do want it.
You matter. You can't make this decision until you're 18. And then you go and decide anything you want. But until then, you can dress or do how you want, but you can't make major choices. If you can't vote, if we don't trust you to vote, because you don't think you're mature enough to vote, then I sure as hell don't think that you're mature enough to make life-changing decisions about your life. And so
They are trying to make voting age 16, though, in different counties.
Well, of course, that would be the greatest.
In Portland, Multnomah, Washington, they're trying to make the voting age 16 years old.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Just FYI.
So I wonder if any of those teachers have sat down and talked with those lawmakers about childhood development and when your brain really actually is developed enough to make good decisions. Because
when it comes to firearms, you got to be 21 in Oregon to where your brain is developed enough, or to drink, you got to be 21, but to vote, you can be 16. So there's a couple of discrepancies in the science around what the politics claim to be science. But I'll tell you this, the thing you said earlier about the kids naturally seek boundaries for security. Yeah. Okay, that's all I really know about child development. They try to get boundaries for security, and when they get in trouble and they find their boundaries, they feel security, they feel loved. And we're not loving our kids by not teaching them anything and not helping them get the tools to live a successful life. In fact, the opposite is taking place in all of Oregon schools. They're being taught how to live the most unsuccessful, most dependent life. Like the person who said, go research, do your research. What they mean by research is reading articles of propaganda that they believe to be true. Right. I'm a guy who works in politics. I'm a political consultant, a civil rights leader, and I'm involved in elections and all kinds of stuff in Oregon. But I'll tell you, I know what's going on in Oregon because I read the bills, I read the laws, and I know what they've already done, and I know what they're going to do. Because if you can know what happened here and what's happening now, you can only imagine pretty clearly what they're going to do next.
So what is your realistic hope for Oregon?
The Oregon, I can tell you the politics is always in every state. It's very, very complex. Okay. These are very complex scenarios. But I've distilled it down to one issue, and that issue is election integrity. Okay. And the thing that has to change in Oregon is that mail-in voting, or vote by mail, as it's called, needs to be eliminated in this state. And once vote by mail is eliminated and electronic counting of ballots is eliminated, those two things, you can have verifiable, secure elections. But we do not have that, okay? We do not have verifiable, secure elections. We don't have that.
But Ben, how do you change that in a state where I would bet 85% of people think it works well, and I don't know how you'd ever get that.
They think it works well, but they don't know because they've never seen any evidence that it does. So other than their people win, okay? And I think it's very hard when your people win to say, oh, there's a problem with the elections. So what I would ask people to do is to say, look, Rasmussen came out with a poll just earlier this week that said that more than half of Democrats, registered Democrats across the country, now believe that cheating occurred in the 2020 presidential election. That's a Rasmussen poll. It's out there. You can get it. It's on my Twitter at Ben Edtl. Just go on Twitter and it's up there. You can read the poll yourself. More than half of Democrats. It takes time because once the Democrats start sharing notes with each other going, did you actually vote for Biden? No. Well, how did you get 81 million votes? But I'll tell you this, I'm on the front line and the tip of the spear in election cases and election law in the state of Oregon. I'm second named on Thielman versus Fagan. Mark Thielman is the first named. And we were, of course, dismissed in circuit court. We appealed to the Ninth Circuit with our case. This is a case claiming that there's a crisis in confidence in our election system, and that we're asking for an injunction on vote by mail. Okay, claiming that vote by mail is a violation of constitutional rights. And we were awarded into the Ninth Circuit, and we got awarded expedition based on the merit of our evidence. So because we have a 2024 election coming up, we won expedition before the state to expedite the case and expedite the hearing. So we're in discovery and all this stuff, but you can't get any information anymore on the election. So over the last 3 to 4 years, the legislative bodies in Oregon have passed bills making it more and more shrouded in terms of being like, you can't see the cast vote record. They charge $100,000 to see ballot images. Literally, the county.
That's public information.
It's not in Oregon. We have a case, Sipple v. Washington County, that happened in 2021, where this man, Mr. Sipple, who's a Free Oregon member, by the way, was given 8 terabytes of data from Washington County for the 2020 election. He only asked for a few kilobytes of data. He wanted to see the test run of the ballot machines prior to the commencement of counting, but they accidentally gave him everything. So that case went to Washington County, and in that we saw that in every single precinct in Washington County, which is the second largest county in the state of Oregon, there's 126 precincts. In each and every precinct, exactly 84% of Democrats turned out. In each and every precinct, 126 precincts.
That's yeah.
In each and every precinct, 126 precincts, 82% Republicans turned out. So 84, 82 in each and every one. There's no way that's not an algorithm. There's no way that there's not election. There's not a computerized result being generated by this. It's crazy. Okay. Now we lost that case, and that was not admissible illegally by the judge. It was not admissible. The judge actually took a 24-hour recess when that data was brought up, and the attorney general, argued about it. And then the judge called a recess, came back the next day and said it wouldn't be admissible because of prejudice. But she's the judge. She's inherently non-prejudiced. There was no jury, nothing like that. So it was a nonsensical ruling. Now we're in the state court of appeals. So those are 2 big election cases that are shedding light on the fact that the state is not allowing us to look inside the box, look inside the state managed system. Also, all the elections used to be managed by the county. Now, the counties don't do very much except put ballots into tabulators, and all of that election data is managed and centralized with the state.
Okay, so 2 things. One, if you get digging around and you go back to 2008 when I ran for Secretary of State and find out that I actually won, I want you to burn all those records, because I don't ever want that job.
I'm going to go drive up there myself, grab you and bring you in the car and stick you in the office myself.
I've been taken hostage at the Secretary of State. The second thing is, I just heard a story on one of our newscasts. Bill London does some news for us out of Oregon for here. And he had last night that there's 2 unions that are trying to turn around the self-service gas ruling. They want to put it back to a vote of the people so they can go back to self-service. And one of the reasons they said was because here's the 2 main reasons. One was because it's dangerous. Now, 48 other states, including mine, we all pump our own gas. Nobody's died. There's nothing dangerous about it. I think that he goes, that is the very definition of entitlement. The second reason that one of the unions put is quirky, because Oregon's quirky, and that makes us quirky. That's what scares me about vote by mail being turned around. Trying to turn it around, because I think people go, well, we were the first one and it makes us special. It's like, no, you're special because it doesn't work. and you need to get over some of the things you did were really awesome. The bottle bill, the beach bill, where it opened the beaches. We were the first to do that. But legalizing marijuana and drugs and and Measure 114, the most restrictive on gun rights. And we could go on and on in Oregon. It doesn't make you quirky. It makes you stupid.
Well, it also makes you communist.
Yeah.
There's no rights. The people are losing their rights left and right. In fact, First Amendment's a big deal, right?
To me, yeah.
Yeah, to me too. I think freedom of speech is good. Now, I hear crazy talk all the time out in social media, and people say crazy stuff. People on the right say crazy stuff. I got these like weirdos.
I ran for office. You did too. We heard it.
Yeah. They're like, we're the people's, the jural, blah blah blah, wackadoos, right? They're like, there's some wacky people out there. But is anybody in the government trying to silence them? No, because they're crazy. Everybody knows crazy talk when you see it. But get this, okay? We just found out that tomorrow, October 27th, the Secretary of State is finalizing a deal with a vendor they've asked to build a software program to track what they call dis, and some other kind of information related to the election integrity in Oregon. This is the Secretary of State asking this. And they want to track the citizens who talk negatively about, as they call negatively, about the election processes and system. They're going to track them, forward that information to the FBI and the state police. Okay, the state police can't be trusted. Your local police can always be trusted right now, but the state cannot. And they're gonna track people and have them censored and shut down. Okay, for speaking out against their election systems. And you know why they're doing that is because of our case in the Ninth Circuit Court. And I'll tell you this right now: there's a guy named Dan Rayfield who is the House Speaker right now, the Speaker of the House in the Oregon State Legislature, and he's running for Attorney General. And Dan Rayfield and the Secretary of State partnered together to get me completely blocked on Instagram and suppressed. And they fact-checked me with USA Today and MSN. And when I did a short reel about the evidence that we have in our Ninth Circuit Court case, evidence which we've derived through public records requests from the counties themselves. That's all I spoke about. It's from the counties. And their RFP even complains of the huge increase in PRR requests or public records requests going into counties that they can't manage.
That should scare every
PRRs.
That should scare every Oregonian, because what's next? Because what I think people don't understand is they don't take it that far. Is it's that there's that old saying it's an old, I don't know what you call it, but it's like basically talking about how people didn't speak up for me, and they came for the Indians, they came for the Black folks, they came for the gays and lesbians, and nobody spoke up. And then all of a sudden they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak up. And that's what's going to happen in Oregon and other places if they don't start standing up and finding out what's going on.
Here's what happened. In 2020, they came after the business owners. And everybody was like, that makes sense, right? Business owners have to shut down. Government takes control of all their businesses, their leases, all these things, right? Then they came after the nurses and the doctors. Then they came after the teachers with the vaccine mandates and the first responders. We filed all those lawsuits. We still have the lawsuits in federal court right now. We're the last standing lawsuits in federal court on the mandates. And then they started coming after your kids. And now they're coming after the Jews. All right. So you're exactly right, Rick. If they haven't come after you, they're coming after you. If you want to know what's next, you're next. Right.
And people laugh at me all the time, but I go, I won't be surprised if this gets censored. They throttled my numbers. Yep. And what's so interesting is Facebook's dying because people aren't watching it anymore. I get they're tired of it, and it's like they're just throttling numbers. So we've moved everything to our website, and our numbers on our website are soaring, and the social media ones are just dying off because people they don't like the content. And some lady said, yeah, I put some pictures up of puppies and something, and I got hundreds and hundreds of views, and I had something that had a comment about something political, and I got 5 responses that people watched. And that's what people should be nervous about, because right now your team is winning. Maybe you're the team that you think you have all the answers, and you guys are on the right side. Well, wait till you're not, because
they're coming after you next. They're coming after you.
It switches really quickly. You can be unpopular. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate
Brother Rick,
your
thank
time.
you very much for having me on. It's always an
All
honor.
right. I hope you don't get me in trouble. We'll see what happens.
Go on Twitter. Twitter doesn't censor. Put this on Twitter.
I do. It'll go live on all of them, but we'll see which ones get pulled, huh?
Exactly.
All right. See you later.
See you later.
Okay. Again. So, you gotta be aware, guys, of what's going on in the world. And yeah, everything's not a conspiracy. And I hope you don't take that from Ben or me, either one. These are things where there's factual information that can back it up. And if you don't like it, it's okay. If you don't like the information, that's okay. If it just scares you and you're going to discount it because of fear, that's not okay. And again, the biggest issue right now in this country is freedom of speech. And if we do not hang on to that, we are in dire straits. And I personally think we are already in dire straits, because you look at what's going on in the world, and it depends on what you listen to, but you look what's going on in the world, and we're in a situation where we are now because certain people lied, blocked the information, had government agencies help them block the information, and you only got to hear what they wanted you to hear. If that didn't scare the shit out of you, nothing will. I'm Rick Dancer. We'll see you next week. Join us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Go find them all, because Facebook's dying. And if you want to go to the one source where you'll get everything, it's just rick@rickdancer.com, my website. Everything goes there. You'll see it. You don't have to worry about being censored over there. Here, you never know what's going to happen. I cross my fingers a lot.